not so much recently, but this conversation was going on about a week ago. There is allegedly a boss coming up that is unfreezable, but it's weak to ice. And this has spawned a number of different things, right, guys? A lot of the conversations or worries that have come from this might be pretty valid, but I think the biggest one that I really do want to hone in on is there's a particular statement that's been making its rounds. If something comes out that's ice weak, but it's unfreezable, yes, this would hard counter Miyabi for obvious reasons because she's an anomaly agent. She doesn't necessarily depend on freeze, but she abuses the crap out of freeze. That's what makes mono ice and yuzu ice so strong. But if something like that came out, a boss, an enemy, whatever, right, and you can't freeze it, this would be detrimental to the other ice agents. Now, originally, I would have agreed with this, or rather I probably did agree with this. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? That might be a problem for ice agents. That's a really dumb decision. Why would you make something like that? Why would you make an unfreezable boss, but it's weak to ice? That doesn't make any sense. And then I slept on it and it dawned on me. This doesn't affect any other ice agent except Miyabi. And I guess to an extent Sokaku, right? Because you're playing the two of them together. You're not really using Sokaku on another ice team. But this doesn't affect anyone else. Ellen doesn't care. Gidhari's not gonna care. We just saw her gameplay and how she functions from the live stream. Hugo definitely doesn't care. And I want to say that's it, right? There's no other ice agent currently in the game.
Are you tired of losing? Are you tired of losing those 50-50s to bullshit? Don't worry, big dog, I got just the deal. Introducing Lootbar, a popular top-up website that offers you purchases up to 23% cheaper.
Nani?
Now you can score that cool Jafufu without missing a beat. Using Lootbar is actually pretty easy too. All we have to do is pick the pack we want, type in our game UID, make the purchase, and voila. But wait, there's more. Not only does Lootbar use the same in-game routing as Zenless, but they're even working around 7 days a week to provide their own trustworthy service. And because I'm me, just for you guys, I got Lootbar to double down. New users get a 10% off coupon right now. And I also have an exclusive link down below in the description that you can use to get a discount on top of that. Now get out there and go pull that new character.
You see, guys, Ellen, Hugo, and Gidhari, whenever she gets here. The only agent that truly would be affected by an unfreezable boss would be these two, Miyabi and Sokaku. Again, Sokaku by extension, not so much as a character. I don't really think she cares either, but Miyabi most certainly. This led me to thinking about like how this would benefit or negatively impact the player base. I think if we did look into a unfreezable boss and we started doom posting why this would be like a horrible thing and this is ruining ice agents and blah, 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 this would do way more harm than it would good. Not because it's actual doom posting, but because it's just wrong. Like it's just flat out wrong information. At least, again, from my sleeping, right? Like me sleeping on it and figuring it the fuck out in my own way. Why do I say that though? The reason I say that is because we could talk about Ellen for a brief period of time. Ellen, once again, doesn't care about the enemy being frozen. Ellen is the type of character where she just wants to do her damage. Can I stun the enemy? Yes. Is it weak to ice? Yes. Okay, I'm doing the damage. And that's all it really takes, right? If the enemy gets frozen, awesome. That means I can freeze you and then I can pop my long ult animation and get the whole ultimate damage inside of the stun window because you're frozen. That is a wonderful thing. So yes, we would care about that when it comes to Ellen or any of the other agents doing their damage because it helps us get that damage per rotation or damage per second inside of the stun window. So that part, we absolutely do care about it. Hugo does not give a f. Anyone that knows what Hugo does, he don't care, bro. He tap, you're dead, right? And if you didn't die now, I'm gonna stun you in the next 4 seconds. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna stun you again, right? And then repeat the process. Hugo cares about an enemy being stunned. If I can stun the enemy, I can do my damage with totalize, and then you go from there, which is a perfect thing for him. Then we move over to Lycan. Lycan's not a DPS, he's a stunner. So again, I only care about stunning the enemy. Lycan's also a really unique character, a really unique stun agent because he has the ability to control whether or not he freezes the enemy. If you hold his basic attack, he's gonna be able to install ice into his basic attacks. If you don't hold the basic attack, you might do a little less stun, but you're still gonna stun and you don't have to worry about the freeze. And you could also just choose to not freeze him. So it works in there for what's going on. Isn't freeze accounted for in time calculation for totalized damage? Giga, it could be, and I don't want to tell you that it wouldn't be. I'm not too sure, right? Like I don't look at the formula behind what totalize is looking for. I just know what it does and how to use it. I can't imagine freezing being, as far as you know. Okay, so yeah, Ericon saying no as far as he's aware of. If anyone else in the comments down below has that formula or knows a little bit more about that, then by all means, right? But I can't imagine that really being a thing because how do you account for stopping time? Like if you freeze the enemy, how do you account for stopping the time? I feel like what they're really looking at in terms of the damage what you're really looking for, or rather what the ice enemies or ice agents are really looking at, is the shatter damage that they do. And again, I'm not fully aware of how that would work out in this particular scenario, because the type of boss like this is a really interesting concept. Something that's weak to an element, ice, but it can't be affected by the actual anomaly of the element. And so now you get into, can you shatter something without freezing it? And we've seen a little bit of this before, right? If you fight against something that can't be frozen, which I think is Shadow Jane can't be frozen, but Miasma Jane can. So the bar still fills up, the effect pops off, she just doesn't get frozen. So would the same thing apply to this new enemy? Because then at that point, this isn't a new thing, right? Having an unfreezable boss isn't new. It just instantly shatters. So you still get that big shatter damage that you're looking for a couple of the ice agents, right? We go back over to ice and we look at that. The final character that we can talk about here would be Yidhari. She does not care about freezing anything. I'm gonna keep it a buck. Like, freezing something, sure, awesome. I get to sit here and spin the win for as long as I want until you get shattered. So looking at this with Yidhari, right? She doesn't care about freezing the enemy. It's obviously nice if it happens, but this isn't something that she's going for. Yidhari cares about maximizing the damage. Even when she freezes the enemy, her being on the field, the moment she attacks again, the enemy's gonna get shattered. So at no point do these other agents fully take advantage of something being frozen unless they have a really long animation. Ellen has a really long animation, being able to freeze the enemy and then just dump out her entire ultimate onto a frozen enemy during the stun window. That's huge for her. She loves that kind of stuff. Yidhari, all of Yidhari's moves, and this is unconfirmed at the moment, but her spin, level 3 charge, right? That's a full attack, but each hit probably counts as its own hit, meaning that the first hit might freeze and the second hit after that might shatter, or the third hit after that might shatter. But I doubt you're gonna be able to get a full 6 to 7 spin with Yidhari's level 3 charge and the enemy would not unfreeze or would shatter, right? I don't think they would allow that. If they do, that's a huge benefit. And it also would essentially do what Ellen does, right? Where if I froze the enemy and I go for the level 3 and you're frozen, I get to maximize my time doing this and then keep the stun damage or keep the stun window for whatever it was, because freezing just stops it. So freezing is beneficial to everyone. Let me make that clear, right? Freezing is beneficial to every single character in the game because it stops the stun window. Whatever you have is what you got. If you have 1% of the stun window left and you freeze them and then do an ult inside of that freeze, you get all of that. Still, that 1% is still the stun window. It still counts. So yeah, freezing as a whole is beneficial to anybody, not just ice agents. But the only agent that truly maximizes the effects of freezing something is Mono Ice or Yuzu Ice, aka Miyabi. And when we look at this from the, I guess, like the meta perspective or the player perspective on like who's really being affected by this infamous ice enemy, I just can't imagine anyone else actually getting affected. So I wrote some things down. I know I kind of like went through that and talked about that and whatnot, which I guess for the most part, let me see here. I wrote down Miyabi and her dominance over the meta, which we kind of briefly touched on that, right? But I feel like that is literally that's just Miyabi, right? Mono Ice, Yuzu Ice, whatever the case may be. Like, she's been a very dominant character over the meta for a long time. We're going into the Rupture meta now. And I think that Rupture is going to be something that we enter into, and we're going to see Ishwin outperform Miyabi, not in terms of her character's kit, but in terms of the amount of shilling that's going to happen for Rupture as a whole. Sorry to harp on Hugo, but I just found a clip in Lino's video that confirms the way I thought Totalize works with freeze. Let me look at this. TLDR is the freeze does in fact scale with Totalize. Let's see how beneficial this is. Is this the timestamp?
Lapse. Unlike in pairs, it's a pause to the stun bar, not an increase to the stun duration. But take it to the lab, and Hugo's Totalize does scale with it, making lighter incredibly important to get the most out of Hugo.
Okay, no. So this isn't, is it a little more after this? Let me see, is it a little more?
Also helps, as freeze is another way of pausing the stun bar.
Pausing the stun bar, we know about that.
Too scales with Totalize. It can be a bit finicky though, as when freeze happens is important. If you happen to get freeze after Hugo's first chain, the attack that will trigger the second chain is most likely going to be a finisher, which means it'll force shatter and end the freeze prematurely. So instead, timing it so that the freeze applies just as Hugo goes into his first chain, or have it applied on Hugo's second chain before Totalize, is the ideal option. With how much extra time you can get out of freeze, this means that it's often worthwhile delaying its application until stun. And thankfully, anomalies only take over if a finisher lands on the active character. So with Lycan on the team, you could EX and swap out
I
to
don't-
build base
so,
while
okay,
simultaneously delaying freeze
After
application.
watching this, what I'm trying to understand here is that how does this affect Totalize's damage? Maybe I didn't hear something correctly, because back here, right, this part with the stun extension was lighter, and this is what he was talking about, is that lighter being able to extend the stun, you know what I mean, by like 3 seconds. This lighter extension is what's giving this extra Totalize damage, because Totalize scales off how much of the stun bar is left over, right? How much did you snap away from the enemy? How much stun did you snap away from the enemy? And so when you add 3 extra seconds to that stun window, of course it's going to increase it, because you're increasing essentially that stun that you have, right? Because the stun bar it's a timer at the end of the day. But if we're talking about the actual freeze, that's where I'm a little confused, because freezing doesn't add it, freezing stops it. It could be one of the two things. The pause and the stun is included in the calculations. Totalize is dynamic to the point that a pause stops the damage loss from loss of time. Okay, so I guess both of those could be a thing. I just can't imagine freeze being what gives you a 60k difference, because I feel like that would be so much more important for Hugo players to be stressing, and I've never seen them stress that. Yeah, it might not increase the damage, but it enables him to get maximum damage. Yeah, we could say that, and that's kind of what I was saying earlier, right? Freezing at the start of the stun with like Ellen is the same way. So I guess in the sense Hugo would benefit from the freeze just like Ellen, but it's not something that he depends on like Miyabi. And I think that's what I'm really trying to get across, is that this is something that you don't have to do a lot for. Also remember, freeze buffs crit damage. This is true too. Let me round this out in a much more straightforward sentence. The only agent that would be crippled by an unfreezable enemy would be Mono Ice, aka Miyabi, aka, no, that's really it, Miyabi. But the other ice agents, while benefiting from freeze, they would not be crippled if they can't freeze the enemy. Ellen would not be crippled, Hugo would not be crippled, Yidhari definitely would not be crippled. That is what I'm trying to get across when it comes to an enemy like this entering the game, and essentially what would happen overall. But I mean, that'll probably wrap up that video, right? It's a quick little video, right, guys? Quick little bite. I don't think if something like that entered the game, it would not ruin the ice agents. And oh, that's what I was gonna round off with. I actually think it benefits them more. Before we finish off, let me round it off. I think if an enemy came out and it was anti-Miyabi, right? Like hard Miyabi counter, this would benefit all the other ice agents more. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but hear me out. Right now, Miyabi has a huge dominance on the meta, period. Doesn't matter if it's ice weak or not, right? We have that whole saying, you might be ice resistant, but you're not Miyabi resistant. Miyabi has the biggest dominance on the entire meta. This is slowly changing over the course of the last like 2 patches, give or take, with them making miasma enemies, them making them ice weak, or having a crap ton of anomaly resistance. Like, they're trying to work on things. Now, I think a crap ton of anomaly resistance or anomaly buildup resistance is affecting the other anomaly agents. They're still able to get through it, but it is affecting them. Something coming out in the future, which would be ice resistant, or rather unfreezable, but weak to ice. It doesn't fully cut off Miyabi's power. It just stops her from being able to freeze and abuse it with mono ice, but she's still able to function the way she is, basically because Miyabi is still like an attack character disguised as an anomaly character. So it is what it is. Moving away from that though, now let's talk about the actual ice agents, Yidhari, Ellen, and Hugo. If an enemy came in and the enemy was basically like, hey, unfreezable enemy, weak to ice, this lowers the usage of Miyabi, but it increases the usage of all the other ice agents that would be in the game. Hugo, Ellen, and Yidhari. All of them get an increase in their usage. You're able to play them more. Hugo players are able to rejoice with whatever they got going on because they're not being shafted as much. And so while I understand that this would affect obviously the players who only have Miyabi, they only pulled anomaly, they only care about using Miyabi and mono ice or Yuzu ice, whatever. If you're only invested into this one thing, it doesn't matter if it's ice resistant, fire immune, whatever. If you are the type of player, like you have an anomaly only account, an attack only account, a rupture only account, you are fucking yourself in the ass. I need you guys to understand that to the utmost degree, because I understand only having this at the moment. But if you're playing the game for a year, 2 years, 8 months, whatever, and the only thing you've invested into is this one archetype, you are cooked. The same thing happened in Star Rail. I'm only gonna invest in the break. You're cooked. I'm only gonna invest into 2 HP draining characters. You're cooked. I'm only gonna play DOT. You're double So that's just RPGs and gacha games as a whole. Yeah, it is your choice, but you do have to deal with the consequences or benefits of whatever your choice may be. When it comes to this in particular, having multiple ice agents isn't a requirement by all means. And again, if in the event you are playing Miyabi and something is unfreezable, this does not eliminate your Miyabi. She's not magically gone. You just can't do anything anymore. That's not how that works. You just can't abuse freeze, which is what we've been doing with her for the longest time. But if you have Ellen, which a lot of players do, especially day one players, if you have Hugo, which a lot of players do because, you know, husbando and he's really cool, has a great mechanic, now you get more benefit. And obviously the shilling, rupture, and ice, Yidhari, they're making it for her. They're just making a designated boss for Yidhari. Again, gacha game. They continuously do these things. It's a little bit foolish of us to think about this in like a not normal way. Like, we're clearly playing a gacha game. This has been a thing for years, since gachas have existed. It's really silly of us to just magically think this would go away, or not expect it, or to be surprised when it happens. I don't want to say try and stop it, because I understand that, right? Like, if it's something that's bad or detrimental to the game, I get that. But I really just don't think this would be bad or detrimental. It sets up a balance, you know? I know you didn't say that, Ty, but I read balance, and it kind of like, the way that I look at it, it does set up a balance in a way to benefit all players. Final thing that I want to round off with before we finish this video here, because I do want to eat. I think that Zenless and, you know, Genshin, Star, whatever, all the games, I think eventually they start to get to a point where they have to try and appease all types of players. What do I mean by that? The players that invest into Anomaly, they get to eat a piece of the cake for a little bit, right? Then no more cake for you. You're too fat now. You got to go get on the treadmill, right? You've been too much cake, get on the treadmill. They got to take a break. Then the players who have attack, hey, it's your turn now, come eat some cake. Oh boy, I get to eat the cake now. It's awesome, it's awesome. Hey, you've been running on the treadmill or eating cake a little too much, get on the treadmill. Anomaly people, get off the treadmill. Rupture, it's your time to eat the cake, right? Like, they're working at it that way, and it's a rotation. Metas always rotate. They do it in fighting games, they do it in League of Legends, they do it in FPS games, right? It always rotates depending on what's going on, and this is something that you as a more trying to be a smart player, I should say, and I don't mean to call anyone else dumb, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying, like, being a more aware player, you're really trying to invest into your account, especially as a free-to-play or a low spender, your money is limited. You need to be very smart about the decisions that you make, and understanding, just like what Verly mentioned, right? I changed his mind after listening to me talk about it on stream at one point. Just horizontally invest into something, but you need to be able to diversify what's on your account. At the bare minimum, one of them. If you're an Anomaly main account, just having one team for Rupture and one team for attack takes you a long way. You can go a long way, right? If you had a brand new account or whatever, or a medium account, something like that, and you only played Anomaly, cool. As long as you had an Ishwin or Minato, let's do Minato's free, which means all you got to do is pull Lucia and you're done. Maybe get a Jafufu. Jafufu is more beneficial too, because she doesn't only work with Rupture. So now you have all your Anomaly agents. You only had to pull Lucia and Jafufu for your Minato, who is free, and now your Rupture team is ready to go. Then if you want an attack team, well, we already have free attack agents, Billy and Korin and whoever else, right? Harumasa. But let's say you don't want to use those. Pick an attack agent that you really like and then make everything else work. Pick Astra and then you're done. You can use whatever stunner that you have available to you on your account, but you're good to go, right? You don't always have to match the element. Like, yeah, matching elements is great, but this is something that happens over time. All players aren't able to do that. And I realized that, already knew it before, but for those that don't know, because I don't think I turned it into a video, but I was able to play on Jay Stern's community account, and it was some of the most fun that I've had in Zenless for a long time, because I didn't have everything available to me. I didn't have all the W engines, I didn't have all the characters. I had to work with what the account had and work with what they already had invested into the account. I was successful at doing it, but it did take me a little bit, particularly with Hugo. But like I said, I really enjoyed it. Doing that really helped me understand a different perspective, where it's like, you know what? I need to start looking at how would I pilot an account that doesn't have access to everything and they only have certain things. And you got to use what you have, you got to work on what you got, and it just goes from there. But ultimately, this is at the point where we are. It doesn't mean that something getting phased out is gone forever. And I think the gacha community always treats it like that, right? They always treat it like, oh man, Rupture's being shielded, Anomalies is on the downcline, right? This is horrible. And that's just not true at all. You are right though, Shiro. For a long time, we've been anomaly, which is why a lot of people were like, just play anomaly, right? Anomaly Zone Zero. That was never the smartest thing to do. At some point, they were gonna have to change it up, right? But it makes more sense for people to do that. So it is what it is. I don't necessarily think they're moving too fast, Ericon, but I think now, I think what's gonna happen is Shiyu is gonna have its own, like, let's say that Shiyu is attack focused, right? Electric and ether attack focused, okay? Shiyu's gonna be that. But then Deadly Assault might be anomaly focused with ice and fire. And then after that, the tower is always tower. They need to start working on that and update that way more often, but whatever. The new in-game mode, that might just rotate out altogether. So I don't know. It's just one of those weird things where I'm like, all right, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, you know. But I personally like the rotations available because I don't think that in-game is something that everybody needs to accomplish, but whole different conversation for a whole different day. Guys, I've held you guys up long enough. It's a 25-minute video. I'm gonna go grab this burger. If you enjoy what I talk about or you want to join the conversation, always come out to the Twitch. I'm not normally doing late night streams, but lately we've been doing late night streams, so you might see that. But just turn the notification bell on and you'll get a notification whenever I go live. Join the Discord, you'll also get a notification when I go live. And if you want to just be a part of those things, even if it's not on stream, I'm always talking in my Discord and having a conversation with that, or just leave it in the comments down below. Whatever the case may be, join the community. I can't say my usual outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Smell you later. How did I do all that in one breath? Holy